Previously on Mr. Mendo's Hack Attack.
My name's Mr. Silly. I wear silly trousers. I booger your mother and watch Doogie Howser.
And now, the conclusion of Never Say Never Again. We rejoined the action as Bond heads to France to catch up again with Largo.
I found a villa for us, just where you want it. It's perfect.
Wow. Jehovah's Witnesses are getting really pushy these days.
Actually, this woman is a British intelligence agent, and in keeping with the general theme, is not very hot. They're soon joined by Felix Leiter, CIA agent.
Felix!
Leiter is one of Bond's most frequent associates. In fact, he's the Watson to Bond's Holmes. And what's most important is that he's been played by more actors than Doctor Who, which means it's time to play my favorite game, The Wheel of Felix Leiter.
And it looks like in this film he's played by Bernie Casey, former NFL wide receiver and one-time leader of the Maquis. Together, they keep an eye on the flying saucer in the most subtle way possible, by standing outside in broad daylight and staring at it with telescopes. Bond sees Domino on deck, apparently having some type of seizure.
Felix?
Yeah.
Forget the soup.
Is that a euphemism I'm not familiar with?
Bond soon tracks Domino down to a spa and poses as a masseuse to literally work her over for information.
Perhaps I should attend.
I'd really like to ask you. I would. But I'm afraid the guest list is very restricted.
C'est la vie.
C'est la vie?
Such is life.
Well, she's a bright one, isn't she?
Who are you and how the fuck do you keep getting in my house?
I'm...
Dick.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, monsieur. Oh, I'm sorry, mademoiselle. We are so very busy today.
Where'd the monsieur go?
Who?
The man, the monsieur.
The man I parcel. He does not work here.
You know, I think the shot is missing something.
The man I parcel. He does not work here.
Then she smiles to herself. Yes, there's nothing like being ogled and felt up by some random guy on the street, is there? Next, Bond attends a fancy dress party at Largo's casino. Fatima's in a car nearby, somehow overhearing all of his conversations. I really have no idea how. Did she bug Bond's penis when they were doing it? Also, we learned the casino was called, imaginatively enough, the Casino Royale.
We're fighting for our lives. Have no fear, Bond is here. He's gonna save the world at Casino Royale.
And it seems the casino also has a video arcade? Is this Casino Royale or Dave & Buster's? Well, I mean, let's see what kind of games we got here. There's Centipede and Centipede again, and some game called Gravatar. I mean, hey, they can't all be winners, right, Atari? Bond chats with Domino, and then Largo enters and meets Bond face-to-face for the first time. After knowing him for perhaps 10 seconds, he immediately challenges him to a game. Largo leads him to a bizarre arcade game, which makes me think the guy's a big fan of steampunk.
The game is called Domination. I designed it myself. But my problem is I've never yet found a worthy adversary.
Well, maybe that's because he keeps bringing in people who've never heard of it when he's the creator of the damn thing. And so at this point, we really do have to break out the bourbon.
Oh, God. Still better than this movie.
Oh, God, yes. Oh.
And now begins one of the goofiest sequences in any of the James Bond movies as they proceed to play this fake and extremely bogus-looking three-dimensional holographic video game against each other.
Mayday! Mayday! The squad is going down!
After a few minutes of playing, Largo just happens to mention that the game gives you electric shocks.
Perhaps I didn't explain. As the stakes increase, so does the level of pain. Rather like life.
Rather like this movie.
Red pain level 18%. Danger. Danger. Danger.
James Bond, killed by a video game. You know, I'll bet all those other villains in his movies are just kicking themselves. I mean, they thought of stupid shit like sharks and death traps, but no, a video game was the way to go.
Soon, Bond gets the upper hand and increases Largo's pain level, so either Bond is a total shark at Domination, or just a wish-fulfillment character who gets to kick ass at everything he does at all times.
It seems I underestimated you. $267,000.
I'll settle for one dance with Domino.
So?
Huh? For that much cash, that dance better have a happy ending.
The plot then grinds to a halt so Connery and Basinger can have a big dance number in the middle of the movie. Here, Bond gently breaks the bad news to her.
Your brother's dead. Keep dancing.
Classy, James. Maybe next time you'll do the cha-cha-cha and tell her that her dog was just run over.
Eventually, Bond learns that Fatima broke into his MC Escher's chateau and killed off his fellow agents so she could lead him on a chase, primarily included to show off the fact that Bond has a sweet motorcycle. What makes this motorcycle sweet? Well, it has 3 sweet buttons, of course. One red, one yellow, and one blue. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what the blue and yellow buttons do, but the red one seems to activate some kind of turbo mode! Awesome! And you gotta love how this turbo button is on the dashboard of the bike, meaning Bond actually has to take his hands off of the handlebars while being blasted forward on a rocket-powered engine. Soon, Fatima lures him into a trap while a random sailboat mast knocks him into the ground.
Spread your legs.
Hey, that's his line.
Bond just humors her, saying that he was going to put her in his memoirs, and she makes him prove it. Unfortunately, she's dealing with a guy who thinks he's performing in a comedy club.
The greatest rapture in my life was afforded me in a boat in Nassau by Fatima Blush. Sign, James Bond, 007.
Just remembered. It's against service policy for agents to give out endorsements.
Right!
Eesh. At least shoot off one of his feet. It might stop with the one-liners.
Let's just get to the expected payoff with the exploding pen already. Bond and Leader escape the crime scene in their underwear, don't ask, and they put on scuba gear to try to sneak aboard the flying saucer, only to get cold busted.
Good morning. You are a bit early for lunch.
Also, most of our guests get on the boat above the waterline.
Largo shows him around, then just leaves Bond standing around his control room, which doesn't seem like the brightest move. As you'd expect, Bond goes for a little stroll and meets up with Domino. It seems the only way for them not to be overheard is to crank up the bad 70s porno music. Bond needs to get a message out to MI6, which of course requires making out with Domino.
I'm going to kiss you. I want you to respond as if you liked it. I'm doing this for 2 very good reasons.
One, I'm very horny.
Because I'm hoping to provoke a reaction.
A reaction in my pantslasse.
Sure enough, this creates a distraction and Bond sneaks into Largo's secret control room, which Bond knew about because he's, well, psychic. Largo then takes Bond and Domino to a large castle, his base of operations in northern Africa.
How do you like your new home, my princess?
It seems like it might get a little drafty in the wintertime, but I'd live there.
But seriously, why does Largo have Bond tag along this whole time? Is he hoping for a 3-way?
Bond, the game is over.
Game over? Spoken like a true video game designer. Hopefully that we can just skip the scene where he puts 007 as his initials like half the people who ever played a video game. Could be worse, could be one of the other half who puts ass every time he wins.
Bond is taken away and Largo shows off his priceless jade statue for no reason.
That is your wedding present.
Thanks, but I'm sure some new silverware would have been just fine.
Eventually the statue gets dropped and Largo decides the best way to get back at Domino is to sell her off into white slavery. Bond gets chained up and is about to die, so naturally Largo spills the beans about his entire plan for world domination. Well, most of it.
Bomb number 1 is right under the president's feet in Washington, D.C.
And number 2?
Jesus, what are you, 12? Or is your first name Beavis?
Number 1, I order you to go take a number 2.
Largo then runs down to Domino, who's tied at a stake, and he's got a big clunky boombox with him.
I'm sure this will amuse you.
Is it Rick Dees and the Morning Zoo crew? Because those guys are hysterical!
Actually, what he plays instead is the song that Bond and Domino did the tango to. Since he put up an antenna, I'm guessing he doesn't have it on tape, but did he call a local radio station and request it? Well, Casey Kasem break in and tell us that this is a long-distance dedication from Largo to Domino. Meanwhile, up in his cell, Bond is using his laser watch to cut through his shackles. Yeah, they didn't take his watch away when they locked him up. Largo, you deserve whatever you get. And in a really uncomfortable bit, a whole bunch of barbaric Arab stereotypes show up to bid on the precious white woman. Bond steals a horse and they escape, and then the cavalry arrives, and then Domino and Bond get rescued by the Navy. They're soon taken aboard a submarine where they get better acquainted. Wink, wink.
It was never like this when I was in the Navy.
Are you sure, James? Because I've heard things.
The first bomb is defused in the most cost-effective and budget-conscious way possible.
The Washington bomb has been located and defused.
And to defuse the second, they catch up with the flying saucer again. To locate the bomb, Bond and Leiter get inside one of those rocket things which shoot up out of the water and split and really... We're really ripping off the Thunderbirds. Really. Just... No. Why? Why is this happening? The ego has landed. Meanwhile, Largo gets back in touch with Blofeld. Yes, Blofeld, he's still in this movie, and wearing the exact same suit. Blofeld congratulates the men on the job well done.
When the warhead is ready for its final voyage, we will drink a toast.
It will be a glass of puppy dog tears!
Bond and Leiter locate the other bomb, another priceless statue gets destroyed, and soon a gunfight breaks out. The bomb gets armed, lots of stuff goes boom, I fall asleep. Suddenly, Bond is suspended in a harness below a helicopter, and I'm sure the locals are wondering why this crazy white dude is finding all sorts of goofy ways to fly over their village in one afternoon. Bond scuba dives and locates the bomb, and after a fight with Largo, deactivates the nuke. Domino gets to make the kill shot because, you know, Largo killed her brother, and also because that's how Thunderball ended. Cut to Domino and Bond having Mai Tais. The story is over by this point, but just to prolong the tedium, there's one last pointless bit with Rowan Atkinson.
Oh no.
And now you know why this movie is over 2 hours long.
Never again.
Never?
Apparently the theme song will be answering for Bond tonight.
We wind up with Bond literally winking into the camera, which pretty much sums up this whole movie.
And that's Never Say Never Again. While I will admit, I do kinda like this movie. I mean, it was the first Bond film I ever saw, and don't get me wrong, it's fun to see Connery come back for one last go-around, but it just feels like it's ripping off a much better James Bond movie. Mostly because it is ripping off a much better James Bond movie.
In an interesting footnote, the flying saucer yacht was owned by a Saudi billionaire in real life, who later sold it to Donald Trump, who renamed it the Trump Princess. But I think he should have stuck with the name Flying Saucer. It could have been a reference to his hairpiece.
Well, that's all the energy I have for today, but until next time, I'm Mr. Mendo, and this has been Mr. Mendo's Hack Attack.
I'll never give in till you're laying with me. You may as well tell me